WBZ's Jim Armstrong picks up the story for us live tonight from New York City. Jim?
Paula, at this point, we are just about 12 hours out, and if both sides followed the judge's instructions, then they would have met privately here in Manhattan today to try to iron out their differences and hopefully make the peace. But I don't think you'd find anybody tonight who'd take that bet.
While training camp continues in Foxborough, all eyes shift to New York, where Wednesday morning there's a slim chance, everything will be over before it begins.
Judge Berman has asked us to appear tomorrow. We will certainly do that.
Commissioner Goodell wants Judge Richard Berman to rule that the NFL was right to suspend quarterback Tom Brady for 4 games. The judge appears just to want this whole thing over and done with, writing early Tuesday, quote, "In anticipation of tomorrow's conference, counsel and the parties are requested to engage in further good faith settlement efforts today," meaning Tuesday. "I will meet briefly with counsel and the parties tomorrow morning," meaning Wednesday at 10:30, the judge wrote, in the robing room for an update on your discussions.
We had discussions prior to this. Judge Berman, we got the letter today. We will certainly cooperate fully with that, and we'll allow the judge to handle the process from there.
One possible outcome, the judge decides against Goodell, invalidating the suspension and calling into question the very idea of having the commissioner be the same guy who hands out the punishments.
I think first off, it's important to the ownership. We negotiated that with the union in the collective bargaining agreement, the authority of the commissioner to protect the integrity of the game. There's been no discussion of changing that.
If no agreement is reached tomorrow, then both sides have until Friday to file still more paperwork. And then in that case, they would come back here to Manhattan, meet with the same judge 1 week from tomorrow, hoping for a different outcome. Live in New York City, Jim Armstrong, WBZ News.
And WBZ is your Patriot source. Of course, Jim Armstrong is live for us in New York City tonight. Jim?
We are about 12 hours out at this point, and if both sides followed the judge's suggestions, then they would have met privately here in Manhattan today, maybe ironed out some of their differences and made peace. Although this evening it'd be hard to find anybody willing to take that bet.
While training camp continues in Foxborough, all eyes shift to New York, where Wednesday morning there's a slim chance, everything will be over before it begins.
Judge Berman has asked us to appear tomorrow. We will certainly do that.
Commissioner Goodell wants Judge Richard Berman to rule that the NFL was right to suspend quarterback Tom Brady for 4 games. The judge appears just to want this whole thing over and done with, writing early Tuesday, quote, "In anticipation of tomorrow's conference, counsel and the parties are requested to engage in further good faith settlement efforts today," meaning Tuesday. "I will meet briefly with counsel and the parties tomorrow morning," meaning Wednesday at 10:30, the judge wrote, in the robing room for an update on your discussions.
We had discussions prior to this. Judge Berman, we got the letter today. We will certainly cooperate fully with that, and we'll allow the judge to handle the process from there.
One possible outcome, the judge decides against Goodell, invalidating the suspension and calling into question the very idea of having the commissioner be the same guy who hands out the punishments.
I think first off, it's important to the ownership. We negotiated that with the union in the collective bargaining agreement, the authority of the commissioner to protect the integrity of the game. There's been no discussion of changing that.
If no agreement is reached tomorrow, then both sides have until this Friday to file still more paperwork, setting the stage to come back here to Manhattan a week from tomorrow in order to do this whole thing all over again. Same judge, same courtroom, same courthouse, in the hopes of getting a different result. We're live in New York City tonight. Jim Armstrong, WBZ News. Paula?
Jim, thank you. So again, the hearings tomorrow.
We start with Jim Armstrong, who is live outside of the federal courthouse in Manhattan. Jim?
David, I'll tell you, the judge had some exceptionally tough questions for both sides today, but he cautioned us not to read too much into his questioning. Judge Berman saying, as far as he's concerned, he needs to get a lot more information before he makes up his mind. I'll let you get a closer look there at the crowds of people waiting for Tom Brady to leave federal court here. The judge also, I should point out, said he finds the term Deflategate in and of itself wrong. Just one of the many things the judge said to suggest he's going to go a little bit harder on the NFL. He said Deflategate doesn't make sense to him, at least the gate part doesn't. He said there's no evidence of any conspiracy and certainly no evidence of any actual deflation. There was no way NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell missed this message. Even in Patriots' enemy territory, he is no welcome visitor. His authority is at issue here, as is his power to punish his own players. His attorney, Daniel Nash, defending him to the judge, saying, quote, the responsibility for the protection of the integrity of the game of football rests with the commissioner. Judge Richard Berman calling into question the very fundamentals of this case, using air quotes with his hands when referring to the Wells report as independent, saying it doesn't seem like Ted Wells, an NFL lawyer, could be very impartial. This was a very serious allegation, Attorney Nash responded. Wells' charge was simply to get to the facts. Mr. Wells is a person of unquestioned integrity. Sensing the opportunity, Brady's attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, told the judge, quote, we do not believe that there is real evidence that there was such deflation. The Wells report infamously declared that Tom Brady was at least generally aware of improper activities with game balls. Today, Judge Berman called that assessment a task, saying, quote, I'm not sure I know what in the world that means, that phrase. That might sound encouraging to Brady himself, but this saga is far from over. Of course, one of the big points that this court battle will address is whether or not and to what extent Roger Goodell has the power to punish his players. And to that end, Brady's attorney made one of the best points of the day today, saying these players signed contracts willing to be punished for the things they do, but certainly not to be punished for the things they are, quote, generally aware that other people are doing. Let me bring in our sports director now, Steve Burton.
Did you mention
here.
generally aware?
I may have said
That's the term.
that. It's my favorite phrase right now.
It's amazing. You know, the strange thing about all this is that when Tom Brady walked into the courtroom, I mean, he was extremely focused, extremely serious. He hardly ever looked to the right or to his left. And we had good seats because we're in the jury section of all this, right?
Right.
Sitting, so we got a side angle of Tom, but it was good to see Tom. He never smiled. Even when the judge was starting to crack a few jokes, he never had a smile on his face. He wants this thing to be over and over quickly.
And that's what I wanted to ask you about. You obviously see Tom Brady in person a lot more than I do. I was struck by how serious he was. I mean, obviously it's a serious proceeding, but there were times when the judge was making jokes, attorneys for both sides making jokes. You could see him from the side, Tom Brady clenching his jaw. You could see the muscles of his face. I mean, he barely spoke and certainly didn't crack a smile.
And there was time where Roger Goodell was even laughing in that courtroom.
Absolutely.
But Tom Brady was not. And he's here for strictly business. He's hoping to walk out of here with no games. Absolutely no games. And that's why they're still behind closed doors at the moment.
All right, Sports Director Steve Burton. We'll hear more from you in just a second. Okay. A lot more to come from court here. What's going to happen now, as Steve mentioned, they're still inside right now talking with the judge. Both sides have more paperwork to file by Friday, and then we can largely expect they will all be back here in federal court in Manhattan 1 week from today, I should say. Hopefully at that point, coming to a resolution. Live in New York City, Jim Armstrong, WBZ News.
All right, Jim, thank you so much.
Beginning with Jim Armstrong, who's live at the federal courthouse in Manhattan. Jim?
Well, Paula, the judge today told us not to read too much into his questions, even though it certainly seemed to me like he was going tougher on the NFL. For example, he actually made air quotes like this when he said the Wells report was independent. The judge made air quotes, later went on to say he didn't think that Ted Wells, the report's author, could be impartial. Roger Goodell did not have an easy time of it walking into court, nor once inside either. At issue is whether or not the NFL commissioner has the authority to serve as both arbitrator and enforcer for his players' problems and punishments. Tom Brady's lawyer telling the judge that, quote, he has no authority to come up with new grounds for discipline. Goodell's attorney, meantime, argued that Brady has been treated fairly. Quote, there cannot be a dispute that Mr. Brady was afforded every right that he has. But Judge Richard Berman kept demanding specifics. What is the direct evidence that implicates Mr. Brady, he asked. Attorney Nash responded, quote, is there a text or an email? No, there is not such direct evidence, but let's be clear. Mr. Brady was asked for text messages, he said. The phone was destroyed. When the judge pressed Brady's attorney on that matter, he relented. Quote, Your Honor, you're right. It could have been done in a different way, Jeffrey Kessler said. I think right now Mr. Brady has concluded it should have been done in a different way. But Kessler still argued Brady's intense celebrity and fame made him weary of turning over his phone. You probably remember that the Wells report infamously referred to Tom Brady's awareness of Deflategate, saying, quote, he was at least generally aware of improper activities with game balls. Judge Berman today specifically referenced that line. He said in open court, quote, "I'm not sure I know what in the world that means." Let me bring in sports director Steve Burton. Steve, if the judge doesn't know what that line means, that puts him right in line with about every Pats fan that exists.
I wish all the Patriots fans could have been in that courtroom
Absolutely.
today, because Judge Richard Berman really, put it out there, and he asked point blank questions, especially when it came to generally aware. What in the heck does that mean? And the NFL had trouble trying to explain what that meant exactly. And Berman really grilled the NFL when it came to independent investigation. That was another big thing that the NFL was trying to explain their way out of,
Right.
and didn't really do it all that well. So it's going to be interesting to see.
Brady's attorney, Jeffrey Kessler, made a good point. I wanted to hear what you think about it. He said, look, the players signed these contracts. The CBA says the same thing, collective bargaining agreement. They can be punished for offenses they commit. But what cannot happen, according to Jeffrey Kessler, you can't punish a player for an offense that someone else committed, of which he was, quote unquote, only generally aware. Is that going to hold water, you think?
I don't think it's going to hold water, and you have to look at the guy who's doing the punishment too, the arbitrator, who the judge also questioned as well.
We're going crazy with air quotes. Steve
There
Burton,
you go.
sports director, thank you very much. Look, this legal battle far from over at this point. Both sides have to file legal briefs by this Friday, come back here to this same court, this same judge, this same courtroom 1 week from today, hoping at that point, if not before then, but probably not before then, to reach a resolution. Live in New York City, Jim Armstrong, WBZ News.
All right, in New York City. So, Jim, any surprises today?
Paula, I have to say the biggest surprise for me was actually Tom Brady's demeanor here in court for several hours today. Not that anybody expected him to be jovial or in a great mood, but he was exceptionally stern and exceptionally focused. The judge and all of the lawyers at different times, believe it or not, were cracking jokes, trying to lighten the mood, or at least being very casual. Tom Brady was having none of it.
Productive day in court.
Team Brady leaves federal court after a full day of questioning. The man of the hour saying nothing outside